We want to turn to another critically important issue, and that is the disgusting environmental racism happening, particularly in the state of Louisiana, in an area known as Cancer Alley. The Environmental Protection Agency has opened some civil rights investigations in relationship to that very recently, and we are very happy to be joined from Louisiana by Mr. Robert Taylor, who's the founder and executive director of Concerned Citizens of St. John. Mr. Taylor, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me, sir. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I'll tell you, the pleasure is all ours. We're really happy to have you here. And I think, maybe more people are hearing about Cancer Alley this week because of the EPA investigations. But maybe for those who don't know, give us just a view of why is this area in Louisiana called Cancer Alley? What's going on? How bad is it?
It's bad. It's called Cancer Alley because of the unusually high rate of cancer that's affecting the poor people in these areas. This area, an 85-mile stretch between New Orleans and Baton Rouge, has about 200 petrochemical plants in it. And the population is 92% Black of the people that is being affected. And the EPA, with their investigations, has determined that in the area where I live, in Reserve, Louisiana, right next to this chemical plant, DuPont, the people here have a cancer risk that is 1,500 times the national average.
Oh, wow.
So I think that would lend some credence to the term Cancer Alley, because that's about what's average for the parishes that's been affected by this great influx of petrochemical plants.
And you basically sued the Environmental Protection Agency for not doing anything about this. Can you tell us a little bit about that lawsuit, which actually succeeded in forcing the EPA to do something? And what is the EPA now doing?
Well, what has happened is that with the new administration, there's been some changes. But up until then, President Biden and his appointment of Administrator Regan, it has been really a sad story. Our government, along with Region 6 of the EPA, has allowed the petrochemical industry just to run rampant. The things that they've done, they've permitted things that certainly should not have been permitted. It's really disgraceful that the agencies that are charged with protecting the people are actually working in collusion with industry rather than fulfilling their goals, and that is to protect the interests of our environment and therefore our people.
One of the things that I know is at issue here, and I'm just curious to know more about, is what have the environmental officials from the state of Louisiana been doing all this time? I know technically there's the Environmental Quality Department in the state and all these other things, and you'd think that if this is the state government, they would have been trying to help y'all out, but it seems like perhaps that wasn't the case.
Well, there's no doubt about it now, and we're hoping that this investigation will shed more light on that and bring some solutions to this. They have done well. To say they did poorly would be understating it. When the head of the DEQ came to St. John the Baptist Parish to address the issues that we brought up about DuPont Denker, he attacked us. I mean, this is on record. He pointed me out in the audience and told the people in the St. John the Baptist Parish that I was a bad guy, that I was a fear monger and a trouble, and not to listen to anything that organization, that's our group that was there in our little red shirt uniform. He said those people in the red shirts are just troublemakers. They're spreading lies. And he went on to tell the people how great a company DuPont Dinker was. That is disgraceful for the head of an organization that's charged with protecting the interests of the people. This man was so blatant in his complete disregard for the people of St. John the Baptist Parish, and therefore the state of Louisiana, in my opinion.
I'm curious, what, for those of you who were active in pushing back against this, I mean, obviously you had to deal with that sort of the name calling from somebody who should have been in a position to actually be protecting the community but wasn't. But was there any other repercussions that you had to deal with as a result of advocating against this stuff? I mean, I'm talking about, I guess, the companies perhaps that were involved in causing this sort of pollution.
Well, we never had any sort of dialogue with them directly. They never talked with us. They talked about us, you know. They even went in a local newspaper and told the people that we're accusing them of doing things, but that we have to prove that the chemicals that they're putting on us is harming us. They actually tried to put the onus on us to have to work with that. We appeal to the governor. We appeal to Secretary Chuck R. Brown, but he rejected us. He made fun of the ruling that EPA established. He told us it was a joke, that they would never adhere to that 0.2 ruling, that we could forget it, and that we're wasting our time because DuPont Dinker was a great company and they were spending millions of dollars. I mean, he just went on a tirade. It's really difficult because with this new lawsuit that we're bringing, there are some rules and stuff that established where all parties involved are going to have to show good faith. Well, Louisiana DEQ has never shown good faith when it came to their attitude towards the people of Louisiana, and especially the people in Cancer Alley.
You know, I'm glad you brought up the good faith issue and what can happen moving forward, because I think one of the things that you always hear, certainly from the companies, oftentimes from state officials, is, well, you know, more or less, this is still a net positive because of jobs. It's creating jobs. It's good for the economy of the state of Louisiana. And, you know, we have to keep pushing these projects because that's how we're going to, you know, make sure people are employed. And I just wonder how you respond to that, because they turn it into such a zero-sum proposition that there's going to be these plants, or, you know, everybody is going to be unemployed, and they almost make it seem like what's happening to communities like yours is a price that has to be paid for economic growth.
Well, that's an insult to the people of especially St. John the Baptist Parish, with 46,000 residents and a 60% Black population. This plant, which is poisoning the entire parish, EPA showed us that the entire parish is suffering because nowhere in the parish is there a safe level with chloroprene. They admit that they employ 230 people. There are 46,000 people in St. John the Baptist Parish that are being poisoned by this plant. They will not give us any information on their employment role. We know, we can see, we live here, we look at the traffic. We know that over 90% of the people working there do not live in St. John Parish, let alone in Reserve, Louisiana. And for them to try to pretend that they're bringing some economic benefits to the poor people, to the people of St. John the Baptist Parish, is ludicrous, and it's an insult to the people.
I mean, I'm still just struck by the statistic that you gave earlier. You said 92% of those affected are Black. I just want to make sure I heard you correctly.
Yes, in the area, in Cancer Alley.
92%. I mean, that's just incredible. Have
92%.
there been any efforts, obviously, to frame this as environmental racism? Yes, but it's basically essentially a civil rights issue when you look at numbers like that. Have you guys tried to pursue it? I'm curious, as like a violation of civil rights?
Yes, yes. As a matter of fact, this lawsuit is under the Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. But of course, they are targeting poor Black communities. They call them the low-hanging fruit. In every at every instant. Well, for those statistics to be real, I mean, that didn't just happen. Yeah, they target poor, they target communities they know are least able and they least expect resistance from them. They were surprised, I suppose, by our movement here in St. John Parish in 2016 when because they sent their dogs out. They attacked us, and it was so obvious. With the Secretary of DEQ actually attacked us, So I know that they were surprised that there were some people who stood up to resist what they were doing. And for them to talk about, I live in Census Tract 708, which is at the right. They put this plant, they were allowed by the state to dump this plant right in the middle of our community. It's 1,500 feet from the elementary school. The state allowed them to do that. They allowed them to dump prodigious amounts of chemical in our surface waters. The Mississippi River is the lifeblood of the river parishes. They're allowed to dump 29 poisonous chemicals into the drinking water, the fresh. They're allowed to do deep well injections. They dig deep in the earth to go to the aquifer and they dump these poisons then they dump them into the air. We might could run to the store and buy some water, but there's no place we can go when they're allowed to dump these horrible chemicals in the air at the prodigious amounts that they do, that they are permitted to do it. The government is responsible for that, and that's what I'm hoping we can hold them accountable for with this lawsuit. These people should never have been allowed to come into our community completely unchecked and do the things they're doing. This brings to mind something I discovered during this struggle called sacrifice zones, and I hope to bring that to the attention of the people in America and the world. Who determines a sacrifice zone and what peoples are to be sacrificed for the benefit of whom? The sacrifice zones, that statement terrified me when I heard that. And then I began to realize that I am in the center of a sacrifice zone, that me and my family and my neighbors, my friends, these 500 children, Black at Fifth Ward Elementary, are sacrificial lambs. The poison that they are being allowed to dump on children, and it has increased as we found out with the new administrations and the guidelines they established, that poisoning has increased by 20%. They did not stop it or reduce it. It has increased on those children by 20%. This is unbelievable in a so-called civilized society.
It really is. It really is. Wow. I mean, you almost don't even know what to say. But I think one thing a lot of people are thinking, Mr. Taylor, hearing what you're saying is, what they can do to support and how they can help. So those who are watching around the country who are thinking, how do they put shoulder to the wheel to help push your struggle forward? Where can they go and what can they do?
They can go to our website and they can contact the number here, 504-559-7304. And we need support, and we certainly would be appreciative of all the help that we can get.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll try to make sure we get some of that information. Oh, no, thank you. We'll make sure we get some of that information out as well on our media. But Mr. Taylor, we really appreciate you giving us some of your time here on the Freedom Side.
Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.